Get yoked for free. Count it all joy, Charles is back online. The Equally Yoked Show. Get yoked for free. Count it all joy, Charles is back online. The Equally Yoked Show. Get yoked for free. Count it all joy, Charles is back online.
Welcome back to the podcast. This is the Equally Yoked Show. Glad to be with you today. We've got a couple of things to cover. Of course, we have the government shutdown ending, and we have a lot of other details concerning this. But otherwise, we're going to be looking at America's affordability plan. What's the deal? What's going on? Are we going to see 50-year mortgages become implemented? Is this even a good idea to get people in the door? Like, I understand the concept of going to get people in the door, and this might be good for some, and then you would just refi to get you down to the traditional 30-year mortgage. But otherwise, I want to know your thoughts on this deal here. And of course, you can email me, freedom@equallyyokedshow.com. Welcome, Jerry. Jerry, thanks so much for being here. Glad to have you here, brother. And of course, we're looking at also these new emails of what appears to be new emails of Epstein mentioning Trump. And the Democrats have most certainly released, according to the Republicans, only 3. However, the Republicans so the Democrats this evening literally blocked a motion to release all the Epstein files, even after they had just released 3 emails. Okay, so we're going to be looking through some of that stuff. It's just crazy. It's crazy because of the lies that they continue to propagate. We all have our own opinions concerning this, but otherwise, we can continue on with at least getting what the deal is with these Epstein files and these emails. What do they actually tell us? How much do they tell us? Even with the woman who's mentioned in the emails, we'll get to that in a moment. But otherwise, so let's continue on with the topic that we're looking at today when it comes to the economic prosperity or the boom of the American economy. What does this look like for the future? Because it seems like the conversation for
is back online.
For the 2020 that was an incorrect transition. Sorry about that, guys. For the 2028 election cycle, what is that going to look like for what's the conversation? What's the main pushing talking points that everybody's going to, that the candidates are going to talk about when it comes to affordability? Got a couple technical difficulties here, guys, but otherwise, sorry for the mix up of my speech here. I'm just trying to get everything settled so you guys can see everything, and so we're up and running. But otherwise, we have Stephen Miller, which many of you don't, many of those that have watched this channel before have constantly have talked trash about Stephen Miller and have called him many terrible names. But otherwise, I think he's brings some very good insight into the economic period in the US and what it looks like for the future. We're going to take a look at this. And of course, he talks a little bit about the government shutdown. Then we're going to be looking at Mark Halperin, what he says concerning America and this battle for affordability with Americans, young Americans, because as we know, this is a growing problem where we can't buy homes. We don't own anything. So this is a big problem. So let's get started here.
Now the shutdown's over. Is he going to push for an end to the filibuster? Everybody's asking and so talking about that. I don't want that to obscure the good economic and stock market news, but I did want to get your take on it.
Well, yes, he is, of course, because when Democrats take power, if and when that happens, when they control at some point in the future, whenever that is, the House, the Senate, and the White House, what's the first thing they're going to do, Larry? They've advertised it, they've promoted it, they've talked about it, and they've booted two people, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, out of the party for disagreeing with them on it, and that is ending the filibuster. They will end the filibuster. They will pass communist health care. They will abolish private health insurance. They will kick 140 million Americans off of their employer-sponsored health care plans. They will give citizenship and amnesty to every single illegal alien in the country, and millions more to come. They will pack the Supreme Court with 4 or 5 Marxist judges. They will make D.C. and Puerto Rico a state, and that'll be just the beginning of what they do to cement and solidify permanent political power in this country. We all know that's coming. We all understand that's coming. And the best chance that we have to prevent that is to end the filibuster now so that we can pass the full and complete Republican agenda, make it permanent, and deliver secure elections to this country in the form of voter ID and ending once and for all non-citizen voting by requiring proof of citizenship to vote. These are basic fundamental things to having a democracy.
Now, I do want to mention a comment here. You said, LOL, recently took 2 jobs to buy a home. Now it's 2 generations. Your kids will need to finish your payments. You know, if you do take this 50-year loan, it's the reports are showing that the age of a first-time home buyer is 40 years old. So if you did finish that, if you finished that loan, you'd be 90. So this is kind of a wild, thing here. And there's a lot of these other good ideas that are being sort of floated around amongst the community, amongst people who are saying, look, 50 is not a 50-year mortgage is not a good idea. But otherwise, I'd like to know your guys' thoughts in the chat, or you can email me freedom@equallyyoked.show.com. I want to know what you guys are thinking concerning this, because this is the initial topic, or this is the initial idea. Of course, there's other ideas that are being floated within the administration, and so far that's the only one that is confirmed to maybe be the front runner as to what they're going to plan to do. And some are even saying, look, we're just tired of the nonsense of this is the best we can do politics. And honestly, that is true. We cannot just settle for 50-year mortgages. There's got to be other alternatives that will benefit the American taxpayer in the long run. So it's not really going to be a good thing. But somebody said 50, yes, that means you'll be forever a renter. Look, it's better to be an owner than a renter, most certainly. We want to get out of America being an economy of renters. We want to be an economy of owners, owners of assets that we can that can increase in value, and it protects us from things like inflation. But otherwise, this is something that we're looking at. And of course, Stephen Miller is going to weigh in on this concerning the 50-year mortgages and maybe some other things that we're going to take a look at here. But otherwise, let's continue on with this video. So I appreciate your guys' comments in the chat right now. So keep on going, guys.
But you asked earlier, I need to answer it. What is next for the economic plan for this president? We're focusing relentlessly on affordability. So President Trump's working to bring down the cost of living even more than he already has. So Thanksgiving meals are going to be 25% cheaper. But President Trump is not content with that. He is fighting to bring down the cost of every single consumer and household good. And the tax bill is going to be a huge part of this. Because when we make life more affordable for our companies, for domestic industry, for domestic manufacturing, with 100% expensing, with the largest tax cuts in history, then prices are going to keep coming down. This also involves energy affordability. No president in history has done more, Larry, you know this so well, to make energy more affordable. President Trump is leaning into energy affordability. We are building new pipelines for the first time in the northeastern corridor of this country. You've seen that we have a major pipeline that's moving through, the Nessie pipeline, more to come. And the president is also making nuclear energy, modern, safe, reliable, clean nuclear energy to power the future. He issued 4 historic executive orders on nuclear energy. America will be the center of the nuclear energy renaissance in this country. And one more thing, Larry, AI. America under President Trump is the AI capital of the world. That's bringing in trillions of investment. That's bringing in millions of jobs. That's raising our standard of living. We are at the precipice of one of the great economic periods in the whole history of this country, Larry.
So listen, if you get there first on repealing the filibuster, you can get tax rates down. Both personal and corporate tax could be as low as 15%. And you could get rid of, finally, Obamacare, which is a tremendous failure, and where prices have skyrocketed. I mean, there's a lot of good you can do. I guess the logic is, when I first heard about this, I was very skeptical. But I'm thinking through now. I mean, I've been thinking in the recent days, you know, maybe it is better. Get it done, because they're going to do it. Get there first. And if the policies are good enough and work well enough, Steve Miller, then you know what? People won't want to repeal them. And the Democrats ever take power, they're going to have a hard time. If the stuff works well, people won't want to repeal it. And so that's why I'm kind of thinking, well, I might like this ending the filibuster idea. And with respect to affordability, let me ask you this. Tariffs, $2,000 tariff dividend, is that something the president's going to push hard, or?
Now, honestly, I'd rather prefer, although $2,000 extra would be nice, would it be better to just pay off the debt of our deficit, right? The 38 trillion that we are incredibly, this is an incredible number. 38 trillion. 38 point something trillion. Would it be better to just put that money towards America to help us in the long run? Of course, we want an immediate sort of, gratification with extra income, but $2,000 will go by like that.
Did he say that off the cuff or what?
No, it is something he's going to push hard as part of his economic plan. With the record revenue that's coming in through tariffs, as we lower corporate taxes, as we lower business taxation, as we lower personal income taxation, we're able to now get more and more revenue through foreign imports to power the Treasury and to be able to give rebates to the American people. It's all part of the America First economic plan. Make America the cheapest, easiest, most effective, most efficient place to do business with the least intrusive regulations, the most affordable energy, the most streamlined permitting process, the greatest emphasis on innovation, and collect revenue from foreign countries that are importing their goods into our country, which will secure our supply chains. That's the Trump plan. That is the Trump American industry revolution.
Now, Scott Bessent talks about the money given to Malay. We're going to talk about that in a moment, because a lot of people in this chat have most certainly mentioned, well, what about the money that has been sent to Javier? What about that money? It's an ongoing conversation, and hopefully Scott Bessent's comments will clarify as to what this actually is, this money that is given to Argentina. But otherwise, in a summary, it's basically a loan where we get money back from this. And so he's going to go into it more. But otherwise, somebody actually says here 2,002 Americans would cause more inflation. Look, it's almost probably the same thing as a stimulus check. The more stimulus checks we got, the more we became. It seems like there's some that have amnesia about this, that we kept getting stimulus checks and it seemed fine and dandy, but otherwise it was bad for the economy because many were saying that we're going to fill this later with all these stimulus checks. It's not going to be a good thing, I think, in the long run. And I think, Trump wants to provide some type of relief. And, the administration thinks that maybe this is it, but it probably isn't for the long run, unless truly there is some real good money coming in from tariffs, which the administration is saying is doing well, I guess. But only time will tell. We're so used to a instant gratification type of economy. We want to move away from that. We need to understand that there's an economy where eventually, if what they say comes true, in having in America in this growing economy, of course, with the big, beautiful bill, with all the policies taking place and taking effect in 2026, what will it look like a year from now? So let's continue on here. This is Mark Halperin on basically people talking about the economy. Are they happy? Are you guys happy with the American economy right now? Because a lot of people, what many are saying is that, well, what about America? What about our home country? Why are we going out and making deals with people outside? Why are we trying to make deals with China? Why are we trying to make deals with Argentina? Why are we doing this stuff? It's a very valid question that many Americans are. You know what? I'm gonna make a poll. I'm gonna play this video clip. I'm gonna make a poll. You guys go ahead and vote.
Consternation on the right that perhaps we're losing touch. Maybe the administration is losing touch with the base. Trump has this interview with Laura Ingraham last night. We'll just give you a taste of it. I can't tell you how many people are texting me clips going like, did he really just say that? Play cut 122.
When somebody makes a statement about he's devoting time to the world, well, the world is the United States, because if the world's in trouble or if the world is ripping us off, it's easy to say, oh, don't worry about the world, but the world is turning out to be our biggest customer. The world was on fire, and we could have been in that fire very easily if you didn't have a president that knew what he was doing.
So obviously, Blake, Mark, the word there, or the phrase there, the world is the United States, I think, keyed off the America First psyche to be diplomatic, though, and actually I think what he was trying to say was that if the world's out of control, we're gonna have a real hard time finding peace and prosperity here at home. You have to put out the fires when they come up. I know what he was saying. I think people are making too much of it, but there is this note that we're focusing too much on foreign policy, not enough on domestic policy. Is that what you're seeing in the polling, the trends, the conversation that you're hearing in your circles, Mark?
The populists of both parties, whether it's MAGA or Bernie Sanders supporters, they're like, "Come home, America." It sounds like Mitt Romney saying corporations are people too. And look, being commander in chief, you've got responsibilities, and the president's view of how to make America successful, as you said, is to be more engaged economically with the world in a way that's advantageous to the United States, and not turn the back on countries who we can help themselves and have more allies. So I think the proof will be for so many of the answers to so many of these questions for both the establishment of the party and MAGA is, what will the economy be like at the end of the next year?
This is the key. We have a clip here that I
think
play.
Some people have sometimes the framing is they're not focused on the domestic sphere enough, but it also is possible maybe the domestic sphere is just not super popular right now. And let's set that up. Trump spoke with Laura Ingraham.
Yeah.
Let's play 176.
We're down on energy. We're down on interest rate. Interest rates are down despite the Fed. Now, if we had a normal person at the Fed, would have really low interest rates, and we will soon have that. We'll have somebody that's.
Then why are people saying they're anxious about the economy? Why are they saying that?
I don't know that they are saying. I think polls are fake. We have the greatest economy we've ever had. We will have over $20 trillion come into our economy, and it's largely because of my election, but it's also largely because of tariffs.
All right, so Mark, you are inside the Oval Office. You have the president's ear for 30 minutes, and you're giving him messaging advice. Given this dynamic on the domestic front, what is your advice to President Trump on how to message this?
Well, I'm not in the business of giving messaging advice to any politicians, but just looking at the polling and talking to a lot of voters, it really doesn't matter how you message it. Is the economy going to be better next year or not? The economy's, there's a lot of strong signs, not just the stock market. There are other strong signs, but people are still really uneasy about the economy. And it's pretty simple, not just for a president who put affordability and the economy front and center, but for any president. Will people before the midterms, will people at the end of his presidency say, yeah, that guy had a theory of the case about how to make our lives better, particularly on the economy? I don't think it matters how he messages it. I mean, obviously there's ways to do it that are worse than others, but that's not, people aren't looking for messaging. They're looking for their lives to get better and more affordable.
As he said, is the American economy going to be better next year or not? Now, there's a lot of intricacies to the American economy and what we've inherited from the last administration, but we need better ideas. We're going to go over to the exact clip that they mentioned to get more of an insight as to what Trump was saying, because he's saying something else. He's saying when it comes to Walmart's prices for a Thanksgiving meal, a lot of people find this comedic that he's talking about Walmart prices. But we really want to know, and I want to know your thoughts. Email me, freedom@equallyyokeshow.com. Subscribe to the podcast. Let's continue this conversation. And I want you guys to vote. Continue to vote. We've got 97 votes so far. Are you happy with the American economy? The majority of you thus far are saying no. We're going to get the final numbers in a moment. Let's see what he's talking about concerning the economy.
And they said that a Thanksgiving meal costs 25% less this Thanksgiving, coming up, think of that, than it did last Thanksgiving under Sleepy Joe Biden. That's a 25% reduction. I think that's right. And if you remember, when I first came in, the first 2 days I had a news conference, eggs, they were hitting me with eggs. Eggs had quadrupled in price.
Now, this was actually kind of ridiculous, right? As soon as he assumed office, as he said 2 days into it, which I think that's correct, they were asking about eggs at an all-time high. This was inherited from the Biden administration, from the stimulus checks, from the amount of money that we sent over to Ukraine, from everything that happened under Joe Biden, under the COVID era, really caused the Americans to feel it. And we were talking about this. Many amongst my sphere were talking about that we're going to feel the pinch later. After this is passed over, after Joe Biden's out of office, we're going to feel all these stimulus checks, all of these payments going out to Americans who are not working. It's not going to be good. And they were trying to do it to bolster the American economy, but it was flat out terrible. Somebody said eggs are cheap again. They are. They've most certainly gone down in price. So that is not a bad fact there.
And they're screaming at me. I just got here. I didn't know about eggs. And Brooke Rollins, our agricultural commissioner, secretary, did a great job. And now eggs are what they were. We got eggs down. We get it all down. But our prices are much lower. Their line is price is affordability. That's the new word, affordability. It's much less expensive under Trump. And I haven't been here long. 9 months is not a long time. But look at what I've done to energy. Look at the price of gasoline going from $4.50 to $2.50 or $2.70. It's going to be $2 gasoline.
People want affordable.
Well, the economy is my thing, and we have the greatest economy in history.
Are Republicans not selling it enough?
Yes, the Republicans don't talk about it.
Yeah, so they need to do a better job on Capitol Hill of
the Democrats give false talk, and the Republicans, and I say it all the time, Republicans have to talk about the fact that prices are down. The Walmart thing is very important. When Walmart says a Thanksgiving meal costs 25% less under Trump than under Biden, to me, that's better than.
So Republicans need to spend more time talking about how great the country is and less time complaining about the Democrats?
We have potentially the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have, again, Biden did in just a short period of time. Biden couldn't raise anything. No investment. I think investment went out of our country. I'm now at almost $18 trillion in 9 months. That's the biggest in the history of the world. China's never done it, never done anywhere near that. And all that money is coming in. It's investment. It's building auto plants. It's building AI plants. By the way, we're leading China by a lot on AI. We have potentially the greatest, already it is. But we have, when these things open up, there's never going to be a country like what we have right now.
And does that
the
mean
Republicans have to talk about it, Laura.
And does that mean the H-1B visa thing will not be a big priority for your administration? Because if you want to raise wages for American workers, you can't flood the country with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of foreign workers.
You also do have to bring in talent. When
we have plenty of talented people here.
No, you don't.
We don't have talented people here?
No, you don't have certain talents, and people have to learn. You can't take people off an unemployment line and say, I'm going to put you into a factory where we're going to make missiles, or I'm going to put
How did we ever do it before?
Well, I'll give you an example. In Georgia, they raided because they wanted illegal immigrants out. They had people from South Korea that made batteries all their lives. You know, making batteries are very complicated. It's not an easy thing. It's very dangerous. A lot of explosions, a lot of problems. They had like 500 or 600 people, early stages, to make batteries and to teach people how to do it. Well, they wanted them to get out of the country. You're going to need that, Laura. I mean, I know you and I disagree on this. You can't just say a country's coming in, going to invest $10 billion to build a plant, and going to take people off an unemployment line who haven't worked in 5 years, and they're going to start making missiles.
So we have some of what Charlie Kirk has said before about the H-1B visas, saying mass deportation, stop the H-1B scam, dramatically reduce legal immigration, end chain migration, and the visa lottery, build 10 million homes for Americans. And he's saying that this would help you. Now, I'm going to show you this post because this might help you get a visual as to what he was showing here. And he shows a chart here, estimated percentage of 30-year-olds who are both married and homeowners. The average now is 40. Crush the college cartel. This was back in August 14th this year. Now, I want to know your thoughts about this. Of course, freedom, email us, freedom@equallyyokeshow.com. Subscribe to the podcast. Guys, we've got still so much to cover. And of course, there's a lot of messages in the chat talking about Epstein files, Epstein files, Epstein files. Look, we're going to get over to the Epstein emails that the Democrats released in just a moment. But otherwise, we're going to go over to the next clip to what's Secretary Scott Bessent in Affordability and with the Argentina deal that they made, the money that they sent. Let's go for it.
The entire media, and I mean the entire media, has been slamming you and the Democrat Party as well for this move that was made with Milei. They know Milei is a very close friend of the president's, they're allies. But it sounds like nobody actually knows exactly what you guys have just done. And I think everybody figured it out this morning.
I think so, Rob. And look, we used the U.S. balance sheet to bolster a great ally of the United States. I call it the peace through economic strength. And how much better to put up the credit and full faith in the United States government, make money, and bolster an ally rather than end up with something like we've got with the Maduro regime, where we're having to target these drug ships and take military action. The question was, how is this good for Americans? It's great for Americans because we are taking back Latin America through our economic leadership. There will be no bullets. Chile has an election coming up. Bolivia just had an election. First time in 20 years they've gone center-right. They have embraced the U.S. Paraguay, Ecuador. So our whole hemisphere is coming our way, and the Obama administration had the same opportunity, and over their 8 years blew it. And I promise you, President Trump does not want that to happen here.
Right, and to the people that are thinking America first, as you said, this is a line of credit, and when it's borrowed on, we make money, I believe, on the interest, right? And they pay back with interest.
Well, they pay back with interest, but the way to think about it is, like, maybe for your first loan, your parents co-signed for it.
Sure.
We basically co-signed, and we are getting a big fee. It's from something called the Exchange Stabilization Fund. The Exchange Stabilization Fund has never lost money. And by the way, where were the same people when the Clinton administration used Exchange Stabilization Fund in 1995 for Mexico? That made a huge profit.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you're not giving away money, and that's what people really care. That was what they tried to stick on you. I mean, even 60 Minutes tried to stick it to you with that farmer story over the weekend that I saw.
Yeah, I don't want 60 Minutes anymore, so it's a lost cause. Only when the president's on.
Oh yeah, well that was a high-rated episode, right? I want to talk about affordability. The president says cost of living issues are being manufactured by the media. At the same time, and that is happening, but at the same time, there is a general feeling that life is still very expensive because, of course, it is. We just went through a hell of a lot of inflation the last couple of years, like the kind we haven't seen in 40 or 50 years. Those prices are still elevated. We're having, inflation's down. It's still sticky at around 3%, maybe a little under 3%. It seemed like this morning you admit that, cost of living is still expensive in this country, but there's things in motion that.
Now, I do want to address one of the comments here that says, I love how they always try to deflect and blame. Look, we've had a Trump era for 4 years in 2016. Then we moved to Biden, and then he undid all of the executive orders that Trump laid at his first term. And then now Trump coming back in for a second term. These policies that these presidents wanted to enact, it takes time for them to roll out and to actually make a dent in the economy. Now, what we've seen immediately from the Biden administration, the American debt, the debt of America was from, I want to say, if you guys can correct me in the chat, 5 to 7 million, around that, shot way up to the 5 to 7 trillion, shot up to around 20 to 30 trillion. And now Trump getting into office, leaving it around 30 trillion. Look, we've inherited a terrible economy. America was not in a good place. I mean, for us to say, well, you're just deflecting and blaming. Look, we couldn't even get the last 4 years of all this money being sent out to Ukraine, all this money being sent, for stimulus checks, printing new money. It wasn't doing our economy good at all. And boss man, I agree, put God first. His economy is going to be the best economy. But I want you guys to consider the poll here. And still, a majority of the 412 votes, 76% of you so far say no. And only 23% say yes. Look, I think we still need to move away from an instant gratification type of a mindset and wait for the delayed gratification of what's going to happen with these new bills, or with the big, beautiful bill that will take that will come to fruition in 2026. And hopefully, with all these issues here, they'll start to correct themselves. And obviously, getting rid of the filibuster. I mean, it's terrible when we have the Democrat caucus trying to act as if they still run America when they clearly lost the presidential election. We need to get back to passing the bills that Trump wants to enact in order to help the American economy. So we're going back to how can we make America affordable? How can we do what's best for America? Of course, we need to make sure that that at least Trump doesn't have at least that much opposition when it comes to every type of bill, every type of policy they're trying to enact. Debate is good, but enacting the filibuster to just prevent Trump from doing anything is not going to help America at all. At all. So we need to wait. And if things start to go south, then let's figure out how we can call out the nonsense and change trajectory.
You believe are going to move us in the other direction. It's like turning the Titanic, right? It takes time to get these things going.
Yeah, well, it's also if the house got burned down, you got to rebuild starting with the foundation, Rob.
Yeah.
And I think what the president is frustrated by is the media narrative, because the media narrative, the 2021, 22, 23, and even 24 during the campaign was Americans don't know how good they have it. It's a vibe session. I still remember that word. And everyone from the New York Times to former Fed vice chair to Wall Street Journal even, they said it was a vibe session. And instead of owning the inflation, they just said, the American people don't understand how they're feeling. And we came in, we inherited a mess. We have brought the inflation down. And Rob, there are two ways for curing affordability. There's bringing inflation down, because some of the prices we are going to be able to bring down. So energy prices, gasoline,
down quite a bit.
4-year low.
Yeah.
4-year low. Mortgage rates, when the president was January 20th, when the president came in, 30-year mortgage, 7.08. Yesterday, 6.22. Yes. That's a huge move.
It's a big difference.
If we can get mortgage rates down into the 5s, that will help home ownership quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I think the president is just frustrated by the narrative, because I can tell you that every day he is working for the American people. That we have nonstop, all hands on deck meetings on this.
Yeah, and I mean, the hardest thing with this country is that every 2 years you have an election. And when you got a country this big, 340 million people, making changes takes a lot of time. And I think that's the hardest thing to get through. One idea that got a lot of attention this week was the 50-year mortgage that popped up. It seems like the White House is moving away from this, and understandably. But there are some other ideas that, and I think one of them at least was one of your ideas that I thought were really interesting. And one of them was the portable mortgage, the ability to transfer your mortgage rate to a new property if you buy it, or the assumable mortgage, which you can assume the interest rate of the house that you just bought if they have a low rate. Talk about that, because those are actually ideas I think that Trump voters are going to love.
Right. I don't know about the assumable mortgage, but the portable mortgage is something that works very well in the UK. If you have a low rate, and there's so many people with mortgages that are 3% or below from the pre-COVID, the COVID years, that they just don't want to move. And it's that log jam that is jamming up the housing market. Someone might want to trade down to a smaller house, but why would you trade down when you have such good financing arrangements? So if you could move your mortgage and maintain the rate, again, it works.
Is that something that we could we do that? I mean, what would that take to get that done? Because, I mean, that's obviously a regulation, right? But that would be enormous. I mean, if you have people that have a 3% mortgage, why would they move or sell?
And you're right. Somebody in the comments says 50-year mortgage will cost people a lot more in the end. Absolutely right. Because you're putting all this what's going to bring your payment lower, but you're going to be paying a significantly more by the end of your loan term. And it's not going to be good. It won't be good. Now, we're going to get into the Epstein files or the Epstein emails right here. And of course, there was a reporter that asked Caroline Leavitt regarding these emails, and she talks about how this is a sort of deflection. But otherwise, let's get into this for this next topic here. And we've seen some people talk about this, such as Ilhan Omar. And we'll get over to her comments right now, but this is her X account where she's saying the public deserves to know who enabled Epstein, who looked the other way, and who's still being protected. Survivors have waited long enough. Released Epstein files now. This is the oversight. Dems have received new emails from Jeffrey Epstein's estate and raised serious questions about Donald Trump and his knowledge of Epstein's horrific crimes. Read them for yourself. It's time to end this cover-up and release the files. Now, I'm going to end this poll before we continue on here. And so far, we've got 488 votes. This is 76% of you say no. You're not happy with the American economy. And I understand that. Completely understand that. We want to see a better economy. We want to see an economy that is booming, of course. And let's see how it looks like in a year from now. Maybe we'll be in a better position, but that's there's some optimism there, of course, based on what's going to be taking place with the big beautiful bill and all the policy changes and such. And we'll see if we get rid of the filibuster and what will happen after that when it comes to other types of policies that we want to do and that the administration wants to implement. So they released the emails here. And so you have documents. By the way, I think it's funny that Jeffrey Epstein would use a Gmail account. You'd imagine it'd be something more secure than a Gmail. But anyway, it says, you want to realize that dog that hadn't barked is Trump. They redact the victim here. It says victim spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned, police chief, etc. I'm 75% there. Now, what's weird is that name that is redacted. Somebody else posted in the chat. The 2011 email was Virginia. This is not new information. This is the same email. But she has already come out publicly concerning Trump because online in her book and interviews that she's done before she even said that she's not suicidal. And then she's dead the next moment. Very weird stuff here. But of course, we have this. It says Democrats all morning, we got him, Epstein, this and that. Democrats this evening literally block a motion to release all the Epstein files. And so we're going to take a look at Caroline Leavitt because she goes on to comment on one of the reporters who's asking about this. Let's get to her comment because they believe it's the deflection of what's actually happening with the Democrats. So here we go.
I have your statement about the new Epstein emails that have been released by House Democrats. Separate from why you believe the emails were made public, can you address their substance? Did the president ever spend hours at Jeffrey Epstein's house with a victim?
These emails prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong. And what President Trump has always said is that he was from Palm Beach, and so was Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was a member at Mar-a-Lago until President Trump kicked him out because Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile and he was a creep. And this email you refer to with the name of a victim that was unredacted now and has since been reported on in this room, so I will go ahead and say it, Virginia Giuffre. And it was CBS's own reporting, Ouija, that recently wrote that Miss Guffrey maintained, and God rest her soul, that she maintained that there was nothing inappropriate she ever witnessed, that President Trump was always extremely professional and friendly to her. And so I think it's a question worth asking the Democrat Party, and you should all go ask them after this briefing, of why they chose to redact that name of a victim who has already publicly made statements about her relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and is unfortunately no longer with us.
Now here we have a news article that says White House slams Dems' bad faith Epstein doc release as demand for files intensify. It says the White House is firing back after House Democrats released a set of documents Wednesday, which is today, previously undisclosed communications from Jeffrey Epstein about President Donald Trump. Says the Democrats selectively leaked emails to the liberal media to create a fake narrative to smear President Trump. The White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said in a statement to Fox News Digital, says in a 2011 email to his associate Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein said Trump had spent a prolonged time at his house with a victim. If you want to realize that dog hasn't, we already read the email, literally what I just wrote you, it says, Democrats pointed to the message as evidence that Trump had previously had a more intimate relationship than the disgraced financier than he has been willing to admit. The more Donald Trump, this is a quote here, the more Donald Trump tries to cover up the Epstein files, the more we uncover. The latest emails and correspondence raise glaring questions about what else the White House is hiding and the nature of the relationship between Epstein and the president. This is from Representative Robert Garcia, Democrat in California. The Department of Justice must fully release the Epstein files to the public immediately. The Oversight Committee will continue pushing for answers and will not stop until we get justice for the victims, he added. Now, Garcia is a ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. And so it says, Leavitt dismissed the document release as a distraction from the government being on the brink of reopening after the lengthiest shutdown in history. It says the unnamed victim referenced in these emails is late Virginia Giuffre, who reportedly said President Trump was not involved in any wrongdoing whatsoever. Now, of course, if she was alive today, she'd be able to confirm these claims all the more so, or deny them. And couldn't have been friendlier, she says, to her and their limited interactions. She said, the fact remains that President Trump kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of his club decades ago for being a creep to his female employees, including Giuffre. The stories are nothing more than a bad faith efforts to distract. Now, this is what we just heard Caroline Leavitt said. We don't have to repeat that. It says Republicans reacting to the new communications also called them an incomplete portrayal of Trump's role in Epstein investigation. Says Democrats continue to carelessly cherry-pick documents to generate clickbait that is not grounded in facts. Another quote here says the Epstein estate has produced over 20,000 pages of documents on Thursday, yet Democrats are once again intentionally withholding records that name Democrat officials. Democrats should stop politicizing this investigation and focus on delivering transparency, accountability, and justice for survivors. Now, of course, anybody who's mentioned in these files, everybody needs to be held accountable to this. Everybody. But for whatever reason, the Democrats are withholding these documents. And why are they politicizing this? It's all about politics, all about politics for them. Even for the right in many cases, some stuff is about politics. But this is what we're seeing with this instance of these new documents being released, or these new emails. So it's just very interesting that we have this narrative being pushed out that they've got new and wild and damning information about President Trump. So I want to know your guys' thoughts. Email me, freedom@equallyyokeshow.com. We've gone over this stuff, and a lot of people, rightly so, they want the files to be released. But guys, email us and for your final thoughts. But otherwise, subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. We've gone. This is one of the biggest shows here because we have to really understand everything that we've covered thus far. From what we've covered was, of course, the affordability in America. We've covered the fact that we as Americans, those who actually are in this chat that are American, we want to see a growing economy. But we're not going to get that yet. We're not going to get that until we actually allow some of these policies to kick in. And one of the hot topics of debate, of course, are mass deportations. Now, there's a report here, and I'll bring it to you in just a moment, but this is from a testimony of the Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigations, the U.S. House Committee on Energy and Commerce, U.S. House of Representatives. This is from Robert Rector, Senior Research Fellow, the Heritage Foundation. Now, this is an important point, talking about illegal aliens in the U.S. generally have low levels of education. For example, at least 40% of adult illegal aliens lack a high school degree compared to 6% of U.S.-born adults. Now, the U.S. has terrible scores in schools. We're one of the lowest ranking when it comes to education. This is because they have low education and skill levels. Illegal aliens tend to have lower wages to receive much more in government benefits and services than they pay in taxes on average. They receive $2.40 in benefits and services for every dollar in taxes paid. As a group, illegal aliens impose a net fiscal cost, that's government benefits received minus taxes paid, of $110 billion per year on U.S. taxpayers. How much is $110 billion? It is the equivalent of an 82-cent tax on every gallon of gas sold in America. As the illegal alien population continues to grow rapidly, these costs will soar. The left not only supports the massive ongoing wave of millions of illegal aliens into the U.S., it also demands these illegals be given amnesty and citizenship. Amnesty would give illegals greater access to government benefits, further increasing taxpayer cost. If the current illegal alien population were granted amnesty, the net long-term cost to taxpayers would be $5 trillion. That is the equivalent of roughly $50,000 for each household currently paying income tax. Illegal immigrants undermines the wages and employment of less skilled American workers, particularly black males. Research reported by the National Academy of Sciences indicates that the low-skill immigration may already have cut the wages of earnings of lower skill American workers by 30%. So we can continue going on about this, in the economy and how we can grow the economy, but we need to attack the big issues head on. And according to Charlie Kirk, these are some of the issues that he had in mind concerning mass deportation, stop the H-1B scam, dramatically reduce legal immigration, and of course, we're pro-legal immigration here on this show. As long as those aren't cutting in line to get ahead, these people have been waiting a long time. Some 10, some 15, some 30 years. end chain migration and visa lottery, build 10 million homes for Americans, crush the college cartel. Now, of course, in one of the executive orders, or I think it was included in the big beautiful bill with when it comes to federal land purchases, or the sort of not federal land purchases, but utilizing federal land. And this is not talking about national protected national parks, but utilizing federal land to be used for the building of homes. But of course, contractors are not going to they're not going to see the benefit in building these homes if nobody can buy these homes. So we need to work on the economy. We need to work on making America more affordable again, which it leads me to the next sort of conversation of what we're looking at in the future for midterm elections, for 2028 elections. Now, I want to know your guys' thoughts as to who you guys think will be the front runner for the Democratic Party, for the Republican Party. As of right now, we're also looking at, here's what we're looking at. We're looking at Zoran Mamdani. We're looking at AOC. We're looking at Gavin Newsom, JD Vance, possibly Ted Cruz. I think, no, not Ted Cruz. Ron DeSantis. A lot of candidates here for the 2028 elections. Hakeem Jeffries. Somebody says the Republicans were left a mess. It's been 10 months. 10 months is not a long time, considering there is still a little over 3 years to go with this administration. And to see if these policies that are being put into place, especially in 2026 with the big beautiful bill, but we have what is concerning about Zoran Mamdani too, and this type of democratic socialist conversation, this upbringing of many of these so when I mentioned Zoran Mamdani, because you say winning a Democratic primary, he's the mayor of NYC. Yes, of course. But these are the people that are being sort of they're being placed as the pinnacle of the Democratic Party, and probably now Democratic Socialist Party, because I think this is going to become more of a popular term as we continue on with this political landscape. Because socialism is becoming this sort of popular eye candy that people want to start to mess around with when it comes to America, which this won't prove to be good for a capitalist society. But these are all interesting conversations to go through when we consider how America is currently sitting versus how the future looks. And obviously, the biggest thing that we've been going through, of course, is this government shutdown. And 2026 will prove to be an interesting political landscape. But when it comes to Zoran Mamdani, when it comes to what his policies, because it's really concerning when you have his winning speech, his victory speech, where he seemed to be more angry rather than a sort of victorious speech. It's more of like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to continue, as we've always said before, take on the Trump administration. And somebody said, hey, EYP, can you quickly define democratic socialism for me? Like, for reals. Because I don't think any sane Democrat actually wants socialism in America. The Democratic part is doing a lot of heavy lifting, dude. People like Elizabeth Warren has mentioned the same sort of things that Mamdani his wonderful talking points of government-ran grocery stores, free childcare she's mentioned. And this is alongside Zohran Mamdani. AOC, Bernie Sanders, they have all these different ideas to sort of implement these policies, these ideas. But you say that the Democratic part is doing a lot of heavy lifting. I'm saying that they're going to start to shift their mindset towards socialism. And their mindset towards socialism is a more softer approach to communism, Marxism. And I'm going through this a little bit more through the Hillsdale College courses that talks about Marxism and the way that it sort of brought itself. Very interesting, very fascinating, but we're talking about things that they sound beautiful and wonderful in the sort of immediate, in the conversation of it, right? We're talking about childcare, free childcare from ages, I think, 6 months to 6 years, whatever the proposed timeline is there. We're talking about government-ran grocery stores, which these types of ideas that he says that he's been put to test, or that they have been put to test, these tests that have been done in countries like China, in countries like Venezuela, in countries like Russia, have always ended up in a way that destroys their own economy, their own people. So these socialistic ideas that will continue to grow, as it does within college, conversations, debates, and by the way, you're saying, I'm not trying to be annoying, just trying to get you to think a little, since it seems like you're a bit confused. No, I'm not confused here. I'm trying to gather all my thoughts because, again, we go back to this with YouTube Punk saying Hillsdale College, LOL. He says anything that I said, anything that I say when it comes to somebody's name or somebody's sort of organization or whatever, he just says LOL and has no argument to why they're laugh out loud. And one day we're going to have a more thoroughly, fully fleshed out live show video concerning socialism, Marxism, communism, concerning the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. We're going to go into this conversation a little bit more, but otherwise, as much as people are making Zohran's mayoral sort of candidacy the sort of highlight, it's become the highlight of many in America, even outside of New York. It's not. A lot of people in New York are hoping for this to be successful. because it is expensive in there, in that city. It is a sanctuary city. Somebody said, "What am I staring at?" I'm staring at the chat. We've kind of reached to the end of the podcast. There's nothing else that I'm really showing you guys on the show. Otherwise, I'm just kind of looking at your guys' comments to see where we're gauging in this chat. Yeah, thanks. Because there's a lot of different conversations going on. Of course, right now we're on socialism. We're talking about affordability. But again, these terms like socialist, these terms like democracy, these are terms that have been changed and altered based on the political landscape today. This is not surprising. And do I own a home? No, I don't own a home. Jerry, you say I'm wrong, and I barely know history, but I know what economies have risen versus failed. I'm going to bring up some notes here because I really think you guys should go back. And look, it's all free. It's not paid for by the taxpayer, but you can go and you can actually look and learn about communism and Marxism and understanding capitalism. If you guys need a better understanding as to what they are, and I'm barely going through the course, but otherwise, so far, it's really, really excellent in understanding countries that have implemented this. So we're going on with Karl Marx in his Communist Manifesto. The Industrial Revolution began in Britain around the mid 1700s to spread to the rest of Europe and America over the next century. But people flocked to the cities looking for factory work, which created large concentrations of workers living together in dire poverty and makeshift housing. Massive wealth and social inequality rose between investors, bankers, factory owners, and the working class. But in 1789, the French Revolution signaled the death knell of the ancient regime of Europe, which was a combination of monarchy, nobility, and clergy. But Karl Marx was born in an upper middle class Jewish family in Prussia on May 5th, 1818. Karl Marx met Friedrich Engels, which in 1844, together they helped found the Communist League. Marx and Engels wrote the Communist Manifesto to clarify the political principles of the Communist League. It says the failed revolutions across Europe in 1848 were not spurred by the manifesto, but revealed the political and social upheaval in Europe at the time of its publication. Due to the failed revolution in Germany and Marx's continued radical publications, he was forced to flee Britain in 1849. Now, again, it was radical to show these ideas. In Germany. And he was forced to flee to Britain. And he lived there until his death, but Marx was influenced by the labor theory of value developed by Adam Smith and David Ricardo, which argued that the value of a product is determined by the labor expended upon its production. But Marx concluded that capitalism exploits laborers since workers create value, but capitalists profit from their labor. So it goes down into this extensive sort of history But he believed that human history can be understood as a perpetual class struggle between the rich, the haves, and the poor, the have-nots. So it really goes through and dives in as to communism and the softening of the word to begin to really become known as the word socialism. And they take things out. Obviously, it's the reformed. I mean, we're learning about Lenin through Marxist, who introduced extreme and brutal reforms. Talks about the man, this is so good. Yeah, I think you guys should really go through and look at this course to really understand it more thoroughly, because I think we've gone away. I think we've gone away from what it actually is, and to kind of think it's not dangerous at all for the American economy, these ideas. It's not going to work. But we've seen countries that have implemented this. Venezuela, one of the leaders, talking about how they were able to freeze the rent or do rent control, and actually, we learned about this from Dr. Charles Steele on another podcast, and again, we can go on that on another time. We'll go through it more in depth, and I think it's going to be beneficial for you guys to relearn once I finish this course. Once we get some more thoughts on it. So otherwise, what we're seeing with Zohar Mamdani, it's concerning for sure. But a lot of people are in favor of it. And we're just going to have to go through it more in depth on another podcast. But guys, it's been a real pleasure having you guys on this show. And if you guys have any final comments, feel free to email freedom@equallyyokeshow.com. And we're going to let the chat roll for a bit more. Somebody said, my friend Zoran wants to implement what most countries in Western and Northern Europe have. He's not proposing a Venezuelan dictatorship, but most certainly that's what it's going to come to. And by the way, YouTube, we're talking about a woman, which sure, she's going through to see what kind of churches are corrupt. And we know that churches can be corrupt. And most certainly, churches should be providing. But how many churches, how thorough is this investigation? We're looking at one TikToker who's done this thus far. How thorough is this investigation into these people? And why did they deny her? Well, we can talk about that in another podcast. Guys, thanks so much for joining me. And if you guys like what you guys heard, consider subscribing and continue to keep the chat going as we close off this show. You guys have been awesome. And otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next podcast. Thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it. Peace. midst of everything that's going on in the world, I love when I can come home and gather around the dinner table and enjoy a nice meal with my family. Let me tell you about Good Ranchers. I'm excited because holidays are around the corner and I get to share our home-cooked meals with my family and friends. That's classic American burgers, sirloin steaks, spicy Chipotle chicken, but I wasn't always this excited. I used to think grocery store meat labeled product of the USA meant American-raised meat, until I found out that over 85% of grass-fed beef sold in America is imported. Good Ranchers is meat I can trust. It's 100% American, and all their cuts come from local farms and ranches. Subscribe today and get $40 off, plus free meat for life. Use promo code Equally Yoked. Go to goodranchers.com, promo code Equally Yoked. Look, my wife turned to me and she said, "I'm sorry, honey, but we can't go anywhere else. We've got to stick with Good Ranchers." And I said, "You know what? You're right." Go to goodranchers.com, promo code Equally Yoked. Let's get back to the podcast.